We have a really exciting product launch coming up that's going to be, I think, pretty big game changer for the industry. They could set 100 demos, but if it's only one qualified opportunity, that's no good, right? Having really buttoned up process, having the right people in place and the right teams and the team structure in place, those will never go out of style.
Earlier this year, we started an outbounding campaign and we really didn't know where to begin. So we were using dialing on the phones, we were sending text messages, we were trying emails, tried a couple different softwares, and ultimately we ended up with Hatch. Hatch has been an awesome partner for us. We started with them about 5 or 6 months ago, and we've just continued to ramp. Every month we add 3 or 4 more automations. And my personal favorite thing about working with Hatch is Hatch comes out of the box ready to go. With Hatch, you get automated multi-touch outreach across text, voicemail drop, email, and a ton more. So every single lead that you have gets worked. Every invoice that you leave gets retouched and rehashed. And it's freaking awesome. Check out usehatchapp.com/OAO. Welcome back to Owned and Operated. Today on the show with me, I have Tim Geisenheimer from Hatch. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, John. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, this will be fun. If anyone's been listening, aside from the fact that Hatch has been an awesome sponsor, they're like one of my current favorite like tech stack tools because they just help us make a ton of money. So we're excited to have Tim on here, and I get to pick Tim's brain on a couple of things. So I'm excited to do this. This will be fun.
Well, I appreciate the support. We've really enjoyed working with you, and obviously you're using our product as well, which is phenomenal. So yeah, happy to share more, learn more from you on this conversation, and hopefully we have a good one.
So I'd love it if you just gave us a little bit of background into yourself. What were you doing pre-Hatch? What do you do at Hatch? Like Tim, what do you actually do here?
Yeah, happy to. So I've spent my whole career, running sales teams at software companies. So, been doing that for a while now. I did a short stint as an entrepreneur, actually myself. So right before I joined Hatch, I'd actually started a company and was working on building tools for sales teams. Actually, at that company, we ended up selling the business, and I was looking for my next adventure, and I got introduced to the founders of Hatch and was really excited about what they were working on, what they were building. So decided to jump in full time there. So I do have some experience starting a business, being an entrepreneur, and then I have here day to day responsible for building our sales team and working with great customers like you.
I don't know how to build a software sales team.
Sure,
it's a confession. I'm glad I got that off my chest pretty early on. Could you walk me through what that even looks like? Because I really feel like there's probably a lot of similar. It's we've got a B2B sales component. How does this work?
No, I think, and as we were talking about a minute ago, and I think we're going to dive into it. I feel like there's a ton of similarities between software and home services. Actually, it's an under discussed topic, but I'm happy to discuss it. So effectively, what we do on the sales side is we try and identify companies that we think are a good fit for our product that have a problem that we can help solve. It's sort of as simple as that. And I would imagine, I'd love to hear your perspective, but there's similarities in home services too, right? Mm-hmm. People have a problem that you can solve and you can solve really well. There's maybe some competition, some other people that can help solve that. You're trying to make sure you're getting in front of them before maybe some other folks do. And you're hopefully doing a great job solving their problem. So if they ever have that problem again, you're able to come back, they're going to come back to you and think of you first. And so same idea for us. And as far as building the sales team, we really work with trying to look for people who are able to, understand and have empathy for our customers, to have conversations about those problems that they're having, and then be, good communicators and be able to explain how we can help solve them.
Well, this is coming to mind in a few areas for me for like how it ties into our industry. I was just talking with Kelly Roberts, and she's an awesome entrepreneur down in Dallas, Fort Worth. And she's the CEO of Moss Heating and Cooling. They've actually been able to scale kind of crazy fast. It's like $15 million in a couple of years. Wow. And all organic, which is nuts, a big new construction component. But we were talking about hey, how do you think about building out the sales function for what you're doing? And I really do feel like it's very similar to what you guys are doing, where it's okay, we build this outreach campaign, we bring on SDRs or BDRs or something to go contact our ideal client. And we're trying to do the same thing, like tying it to us. We have a restoration business, which is almost all B2B. So the way that works is we're going to go sometimes knock on doors with other plumbing companies, or we're going to talk to insurance companies, and we have to identify them. And it's just such a different process than me going and like buying a lead off Google.
No, exactly right. And I would say the similarities there, just to maybe draw more tactical details for software. So one of the things that we do is that we rely heavily on data to try and understand, who are the right folks to buy our product.
Yeah.
Why do we think they're the right people? What data sources can we gather to try and pinpoint, hey, Wilson Companies is at this level of revenue and they have this many CSRs and they're maybe spending this much on marketing across these different channels. We're able to gather some of that data to help us, much more finely target and pinpoint the people that we think are the best fit for Hatch. And then that message from our SDR or from our sales team is going to be much more likely to receive positively than if we're going after the wrong people. So I'd imagine in that business that you're starting to build, same idea, right? If you're able to find people that you think are, a really good fit for that restoration business, then if you put someone to go reach out to them, it's going to be a better fit than, if it's just a random list of people that you kind of got from somewhere. So that'd be maybe a recommendation to you. What are some of the data points you can find that would indicate someone's, really going to need your service, and then try to identify that data and then go find it.
Yeah. Like how does that work for you guys? Like who's a good example of like who you would look for?
Yeah. So I kind of gave you some examples and I'll go down to a few more. So we look at things like what's the size of the business? And that can be a revenue estimate or total employees. I think Service Titan, for example, looks at, how many trucks do you have? How many vans, right? And so famously, they have at their conference Pantheon, they'll hand out those pins where they'll say how many you got, 80 trucks or whatever it is. So that's one of the ways they look at it. But same idea for us. Are you doing $30 million in revenue? That's going to be a better fit for us than someone doing 3 or 4. And then we look at things like, do you have a contact center team? Are you doing some of the things like, or an inside sales team? Are you doing kind of that rehash component? If you do, those are kind of check boxes for us. And then, finally, there's the component of, are you a multi-location business? Do you have kind of a larger operation where you're starting to expand, regionally or even, in rare cases, nationally? That would be a really, telltale sign for us. And so there's more than just that, but those are some of the good signs for us that, hey, this business is probably going to be a better fit, for Hatch versus a business that might be a bit smaller.
Yeah. When you're going to hire, I'm trying to like take in so I can go build a B2B sales team.
Yeah, please.
Like if I'm going to go build a B2B sales team tomorrow in my restoration business, or grease traps would be another thing that we do that might apply here. Like, who am I looking for? And like, how do you even set the measurements? Like how many calls a day or appointments a day, or like, how do you set that?
Yeah. So I think there's 2 roles that are typically in software sales. And you mentioned, SDR, BDR, and I'd be curious to hear how you're thinking about it for what you're planning to do. But the 2 primary roles that can get more specialized, but let's just, for sake of simplicity, it's that sales development rep, which is kind of the most junior person, and they're responsible for the cold calling, the cold emailing, that sort of thing. Typically, the way they're paid is they'll have some level of a base salary, but then they'll have a big component which is based on a few different metrics. Different companies do it different ways, but one of the key ones would be just how many demos have you set? So you're going for the grease trap business, how many like grease trap demos have you set, this month? So we do monthly. You could do different timelines, but that's typically how you do it. And then you kind of pay per demo. Some companies will do it where they'll look a little bit lower down in, what you might call the pipeline, or the funnel. So it's not just about the demo set, because maybe you could set a lot of bad demos.
Yeah.
So let's actually pay on what we call a qualified opportunity. So someone you actually had a phone call, you did the demo set, you talked to the person, you're like, yeah, we need the grease trap actually. Like, we don't have that, and that's something we need. And then that would be qualified. And so then instead you could actually pay on the qualified opportunities produced. That's how we do it here. So I've seen companies do demo set, and we do it actually on the opportunity side. So we really want that team they could set 100 demos, but if it's only one qualified opportunity, that's no good, right? They're not going to be doing their job. We want them focused on finding kind of great people for us to work with that have the problem that we help solve and that we can uniquely solve. And so I'd recommend that for you, that junior role, maybe the kind of outbound role would be focused on that. If you want to keep things simple, you can have that role also go into the field and do the meetings and actually sell the product.
Do the sale. Yeah.
Yeah. What we do is we do have it separated. So we have that role that's kind of setting the meetings and helping to get those qualified opportunities. And then we have the more senior sales team. They're doing kind of the demos. They're talking, about the problems. They're understanding through discovery, what exists today. What are you doing about sales follow-up or whatever it might be? And then, they're compensated on just a commission on the revenue they produce. So it's often a direct percentage. You get a kind of a piece of, every sale that you bring in. And so I think that's pretty common for home services too, right? Oftentimes you'll see the rehash team, they're getting paid, even sometimes on strict commission basis, but fairly common there. So those are the two roles in software. I think there's a lot of kind of overlap into your world too, but I don't know your perspective on that.
Yeah. Like ours is, so we're kind of different in that we have this outside sales team, but for homeowners. And the way that looks is like door-to-door canvassers and an events team. And ours is set up really pretty similar to this, which is kind of funny. So I think lead setters is what we call them, because it's, we're going to go, or canvassers, but we're going to go knock on the door. We're going to try to set an appointment. And then they get paid, per appointment. Now there are some companies, and the appointment is run by a salesperson. We're finding, and I'm sure you guys are too, but it is complicated to set a good lead from like scratch, like really complicated. Like we have, we're maybe 10 months into this and we're just starting to like set good leads. And I mean, we're setting hundreds of leads a month, but like, are they good leads? Like, did we set them up right? Did we set good expectations? Like what communication happened between setting that lead and like we call it the demo too, sitting for the demo. And like, did we talk about what we were going to do? It's been really interesting. And then cancel rate. I talked about that on Twitter the other day. I did a post and it was like, hey, we're 8 months into this. If we're finally getting ROI on our events team, and cancel rate has been like the nut to crack.
Yeah. And by the way, these things can happen kind of in our business too. And I would say, I should have given you a call, John. I was in Cleveland last week. Dude. So I'm sorry I missed you. I know.
One job.
It was in and out. It was in and out. But I met with a home improvement company there. And so
was it Premier?
It was, those guys?
They're like barely. I follow them along on LinkedIn. They're amazing.
They're amazing. So I met with Vince at Premier.
Yeah.
So shout out to Vince. And he walked me through some of his metrics. They have an extremely sophisticated sort of way of tracking their metrics throughout the entire kind of funnel, right? And so, I saw them last week, so it's top of mind for me. But what I would say is they're constantly looking for how can we get gains within this pipeline, within this funnel, across all the different spots where there might be leakage or drop off. And so the canceled appointments is one that they see too. Everyone does. It's not unique to them. And so I think this is part of the process, and a good, maybe to pat my own back, a good sales leader, this is what they're thinking about. They're thinking about how do you, tweak every aspect of the process to make it as streamlined as possible, to train the team to do a better job, to understand what objections are coming up commonly, to iron those out, to make those kind of less friction there. That's what a great sales leader will do, and how you can get kind of that team to start to be more productive.
When you're thinking about like that example, sounds great. Want to talk to them even more now. To me, it blends the line between sales and marketing. And like, I think this whole outside sales thing does. So like you're seeing this, like the cancel rate, all that stuff, that is a sales function in Premier in this case, which if the listener doesn't know, Premier is like kind of insanely fast growing home remodel business. I think they started like a year or two ago, and they're clipping like $3 million weeks right now.
I think they put it on LinkedIn, so I don't think I'm sharing anything that's not public.
Right.
But
Yeah. Yeah. It's
about
public.
2 years ago, and they just had this is on LinkedIn, so I'll share what was on LinkedIn. $10 million, over $10 million a month.
Insane. Just insane level of growth. It's just totally unbelievable. And they're based here in Akron, Ohio.
That's right.
Yeah, that's crazy. So you see that like capturing leakage, handling the canceled, like that falls inside sales in your mind and inside their mind.
It's a collaboration. So certainly like on the marketing side, like if you're, again, let's talk about something like the Premier or home services use case.
Yeah.
Like you have all these different lead channels, right? And so, you're trying to optimize between Google LSA and Angie and Modernize and all these different ones. And then you're looking at on a channel basis, what's the quality across different metrics, where's drop off. So that's a marketing, focus, right? Like you're trying to understand, the cost per lead and like negotiating there. And, so there's a lot going on there that marketing owns. But then once it gets into, let's say, the contact center, and that can be, there's a difference between the service side and the sales side, but let's just say it's the sales side. Then you want to have that leader of the contact center or on the sales side understand, okay, when we get leads coming in or different, from different channels, how are we optimizing kind of our approach and our process to maximize things like the set rate, demo health, minimize cancel, what are the things we can do? What software can we use to make sure we're, optimizing that? So that's where I think sales really comes into play. And it's a collaboration between sales and marketing always.
I feel like that gave me a lot of good ideas.
Well, you're in Akron. I'm really kicking myself now.
Dude. I hope you feel so bad. I like live in Akron. I live like 5 minutes from their office, and our old office is probably 2 minutes from where they used to be. We moved to Stowe.
We were in their office and everything. Oh man.
Yeah. I reached out to them on LinkedIn. I really got to connect. Maybe I'll start with like, hey, come on the show. There's nothing white dudes love more than getting on a podcast. It's like the easiest in the world.
Vince is our CMO. I mean, he's super sharp. I'm sure he'd be.
He'll get on mic.
After this, sure. I'll connect you guys over email. So.
Yeah. No, that'd be amazing. I'd love it. I'd love it. Well, yeah, that's awesome. It's been a huge area of learning for us. And I think the whole. Maybe not the whole industry, but we got to kind of a decent size, really just spending a ton of money on Google LSA and like not loving the lead. And it was almost like there was so many leads that it just didn't matter that you lost some here, that you just didn't think about it. But we've really put a ton of work into like, what's that speed to lead process look like? How do we reduce our cancel rate? How do we increase that sit rate? And that's been across all of it. I mean, we started really getting the most lessons learned out of our field marketing team because that's where it was the most egregious. But then when we looked at what was happening in that team, we're like, oh my God, this is happening in the entire rest of the business. Like, how are we continuing to rehash these leads and like, what's our process there? And the answer was there was none. And I think like plumbing, HVAC, electric as a whole, you're just not used to it, right? Like you're used to like, hey, I don't have hot water. We call it like, it's like the cold lease versus hot lead problem where like you can get to 20 million exclusively on hot leads, but eventually you do have to figure out how to manage leads.
Yeah. And, and I would say as a small plug to what we do, that's an area where we really help. And I think a reason why, as you get to be a larger business, why there's an attraction to using a service like ours is because all of a sudden you see that maybe organic growth piece plateau, but you're starting to tap out to some extent across the major markets you're in. So it's either you tell me if I'm wrong on this because you're the expert, but it's either you expand markets and like grow that way, or you start to say, hey, how are we going to do a better job making kind of the market we're in, more efficient for us and like not lose the leads, and not just rely on those hot leads, but also say, hey, someone was looking for something here and we didn't do anything with that. Yeah. And so maybe we can do a better job following up.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's just totally different. Like even the work that we've done, like inside our call center on like how we think about rehash. Cause it starts off with like, okay, well, how are you communicating? And the Hatch was our solution to that. But then like, well, okay, are you calling too? And like, how are you managing a pipeline of these leads? And it's, huge learning for us because it's just so different than what we were doing in like, oh, your toilet's broken, we'll be there, in 2 hours. It's just a totally different experience.
What, as far as LSA goes, I'm curious to hear, the distribution for you. Was it predominantly the phone leads, or were you also doing message leads? Where did you see kind of the biggest bang for your buck as you scaled that up?
I have two answers to that. Like almost all phone leads. Like we did some message, but people really just didn't use it. And also we didn't have a great like response tool. So maybe other people are doing that better. I just really think like we were really immature there. But what has been totally out of freaking left field for us, that's why I keep talking about it on LinkedIn. I probably should stop, but like all these lead aggregators are now like an actually good lead source for us because we went through all this energy of building this like rehash, like component, like outbound calling and outbound messaging and like the speeds of lead process. Like Angie had a higher ROI than LSA in January for us. And we're like, what the hell just happened? Like what just happened? Totally crazy. So like all that to say, like, yes, it was phone leads, but now that we've gone through this discipline, we're like, oh my gosh, like every lead we have is now a lot more valuable. Like we just got a couple hundred leads from this home show we did that Premier was in too. And like we have this sort of machine to put it into now. So we're pumped.
We're about 8 months into using Avoca. And Avoca's been an awesome partner for us in our call center. So what Avoca does for us is they do two different things. One, they have their Coach product, and Coach has been helping us do what it says. Coach our CSRs every single day. It listens to every call and uses AI technology to basically pick apart that call and tell us where we can improve. And for the last 8 months, we've been consistently improving our scores, which has been awesome. The other product they have is just conventional booking. And it's an AI tool that books over the phone. A customer calls in and it either handles overflow, as in our phones are full, or it does nights and weekends for us. And a customer will call in and actually deal with an AI agent all the way through booking. And the savings inside call center has allowed us to ramp up our marketing to continue to grow even more. Thank you, Avoca, and thank you, Tyson, for your partnership.
One of the reasons why we work closely, and I think they like us with folks like Angie and others, is that we have an opportunity as a software solution to help you do a better job kind of going after the folks that come in and kind of raise their hand via that platform and others. And oftentimes I think folks that own and operate home services businesses, they'll say, "Oh, Angie just doesn't really work for us." And I think part of that is just the way they're kind of parceling it out to different people, right? And that's annoying. Yeah. But at the same time, if you're able to get to it quickly, that's a high intent lead. And then if you go back to it, be like, "Oh, I was looking for something. The first person I spoke to wasn't able to do what I was looking for, maybe at the price I wanted. So I'm more. You called me 2 days later, but I'm now still in the market for it, and I'm willing to talk to you. So thanks for reaching back out." So it makes a ton of sense, and but that is fascinating that it was higher ROI than Google.
Crazy. Yeah, totally. Totally. Just because LSA sort of sets the gold standard for us, anyways. I'm sure other people feel different, but it sets the gold standard for us of like, okay, this is our best ROI, and it has been for kind of a long time. So yeah, the fact, and Angie does have this reputation of just being like shitty.
And listen, I think that again, we're good partners with them. So, I think that reputation is often as a result, it results from the way they've built their business and how their product operates it's competitive. And so you have to, as the customer of Angie, you have to kind of play by the rules a little bit. Yeah. And it's not easy always to do that, but if you do, I think it can really work. And we've certainly seen a lot of larger Angie customers that are using us, be really successful with it. So, but I can understand the frustration, just understanding how that product operates.
Yeah, and I think it's mainly just like immature process. The smaller you are,
Yep.
you don't have the speed to lead. You don't have this ability to do all the rehash you need to do. But man, they have been pumping out leads. Like it has really been just super successful for us. So we're excited about it.
That's great to hear.
What are you seeing right now? Like, how's the industry feeling? Like, what are you seeing across everybody? How are people winning?
Yeah, I think the overall, from what I've seen, and I know there's a weather aspect to it. You know, winter has, I think, been good for the industry overall. I don't know if that's how you're seeing it.
I mean,
there's been some weird weather, and I think that's
like us
thing,
having a winter is nice. Like last February, it was 70 degrees for like a good portion of February. So we're just excited it's in the 20s.
Yeah. So it's cold. There's snow. You know, there's stuff going on. So I think that just as a backdrop is good. And I think what we're seeing is that there's a desire for companies to continue to invest in process and invest. And we're often talking to the larger businesses, but there's tremendous excitement around technology and how it can help the business. And we have a product launch. Kristen, our head of marketing, might kill me for saying this, in an unsanctioned
we won't tell her
venue here, but we have a really exciting product launch coming up that's going to be, I think, a pretty big game changer for the industry.
Yeah, you should tell me more about it.
Yeah,
since she's not here.
Yeah, since she's not here. But I think just in general, the continuation of being able to leverage technology to improve operations is something that we see a ton.
Yeah.
And there's just excitement, I think, in the industry about the trend continuing to go up. Like I haven't heard much, concern. I think people are pretty just bullish in general about, the business and how things are going.
I think what's been interesting, and I wonder if it's market, or I guess I don't know what it is. So maybe you tell me what it is, because you're a little bit like deeper into some of these businesses than I am. But what I've been fascinated by is some of these businesses that are like technology driven, I think strong leadership teams in the right markets, doing the right, all resi service, that type of thing. And they have just stalled out or shrunk a little bit. Like, have you gotten any exposure to businesses like that? And like, where do you think they could be improving?
We have, I would say, and I don't know, why this is the case, but we don't have too many examples of that in our customer base. But I have heard.
Well, maybe that's indicative of like they're just not investing in the right technology. Like that could be part of the answer.
Yeah, and it could be. I would say that would be an answer that I would love.
Self-serving answer, nice.
Yeah. I think there's also. I mean, we see this in. I come from the software space. Sometimes in software, there's startups that they'll maybe raise too much capital and they'll expand too quickly in terms of their operations. And then as a result, they'll fly, too close to the sun, and they'll kind of get burned. Right. And so I do wonder if sometimes that can happen in other industries as well, where, you expand a bit too quickly. You don't have a proven process or ability to win in that market, or the right people kind of in places to succeed there. And as a result, that might lead you to then kind of pull back. So it's probably something like that would be my guess. You tell me, because it's, again, your space, but my understanding is that it's really hard to win in some of these competitive markets, the tier 1, 2, and even 3 markets. Like there are great operators, either independent operators such as yourselves or private equity backed platforms. So to win, you gotta have your game face on. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, you got to show up to fight, 100%. Yeah, and I think, I suspect you're right. I mean, maybe it is like a overinvestment or something that Brandon and I, my president, we talk about a lot, is what we call the stall. So there seems to be this moment, and maybe it's overexpansion. It's us looking into other people's businesses and just trying to figure out what happened, why the stall. And what's been interesting is over the past couple months, I just see it more and more and more. So I'm like, okay, you've got a ton of these customers, like you're dealing with them. Are you seeing it too? But I mean, I can think of 10 examples off the top of my head of these companies that got to $10 to $30 million. And then they just stopped.
Yeah, it's interesting. And again, I don't, I promise I would tell you and I wouldn't name the names, but we haven't seen, we haven't at least heard examples of those types of companies in terms of larger ones and those revenue ranges you mentioned in our customer base. That doesn't mean there aren't some there. I mean, it's possible there are, I just haven't heard of them. But
I really do think that might be a part of the answer then, because like, hey, if they're just not choosing to invest in other stuff, like maybe that's it. Maybe they're on antiquated CRMs, or maybe they aren't loving the lead. Cause I know leads are like, that's everybody's problem right now.
Sure. Yeah. And I would say, putting what we do aside, I think just overall having really buttoned up process, being detail oriented, having the right people in place and the right teams and the team structure in place. I don't care if you're a software business or in home services, those will never go out of style. And so if you do have a situation where, you burned a lot of money to like scale up on marketing, on buying leads or whatever it is, but you didn't then put in a lot of processes that you need to put in, it's possible that could then lead to kind of that stall in growth and or bad things happening, right? But if you are putting in solid processes and you're customer focused and you have a great brand and you're doing kind of all the things that I believe Wilson companies are doing, then I think you should be able to kind of weather any storms. As far as the lead equation goes, yeah, I think we've heard, weather aside, some similar kind of stories on that front. We are probably going to be putting out some data just in aggregate around what we see, because we have, 1,200 customers and we send millions and millions of messages every month, tens of millions of messages every month. And so we get, we're connected to all these different lead aggregators as well. So I think we probably have a story we can tell there. So let me report back on that, because it'd be interesting to see if we have any macro data we're able to share.
Yeah, I'm really interested. What do you think? And this is sort of like in between us, right? Like tied in between like what you guys do in your sales team and like what you think a home service company should do. But walk me through the pipeline management. Obviously, Hatch is a component, but there's other components too. The call, the everything else. Like, what do you think best in class looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned Service Titan. So I think having, a great CRM like Service Titan really is important to kind of managing that, right? And so, in our case, we use a product called HubSpot, which is, some home services companies use it as well, but it's very common in software. And so we have kind of all of our customer data in there. We, track everything from the first time someone, registers for this podcast, on the website, all the way through to when they become a customer. And sometimes that customer journey can take, 3 or 4 or 5 months. And it can take, multiple different conversations from different people. And so we do our best to kind of really pin down kind of where people are coming from, what are the steps, in between. We have what we call opportunity stages that we track. And we're pretty meticulous on understanding and inspecting, where those conversations are, what the next steps are. And again, we're more B2B, like we were talking about earlier. So that matters more for us.
I think it sounds like Premier runs a pretty similar process.
Correct. They absolutely do.
I think to me, it's all the same thing. Like it's all the same thing. This is like, here's the lead. How do we convert that lead?
What's funny, and I won't share the exact numbers, but their average ticket size is quite similar to ours. So it's, if you just forget that it's software and it's like bathroom remodel in the case of Premier, and software for us, like it's the same amount of money. It's a big considered purchase, and we're obviously working with companies, but companies have to be thoughtful about how they spend money, just like consumers. So very, very similar. And they inspect all aspects of the pipeline, like you said, as well.
Yeah, I feel like it's honestly, I'm kind of excited about it, because I feel like we've started to scratch the surface. And the more that we like learn about how to do this, the more we're just like, oh, we know nothing. But that's so exciting, because like we can just continue to get better. And this is a discipline that our industry just doesn't really care about. Like Premier, absolutely. But like, plumbing, HVAC, and electric is still so driven by this the hot lead.
Even for the question back to you on that, what about for the installation side? I mean, I guess that would still be driven by, hey, I have a problem that happens to be related to, my HVAC system. And then you go deal with that hot lead. And then the answer is, hey, you actually need to replace your condenser.
Yeah.
And it's going to be 10 grand to do it. And so
I think about the culture of the industry. Maybe I've got a lead over here and this lead is a no air conditioning call. Mm-hmm. And if I go to this lead, I am very likely to sell something 80% closing rate. And if I flip it over to a comfort advisor, I'm going to flip it's going to work. It doesn't take a lot of work. So HVAC and plumbing and electric, people need it. They need heat, they need water, they need power. So when you get those leads, you basically sort of get drunk off them. So so then the whole industry, it's Angie's List and all that stuff, not really working. It obviously does work, but it's kind of the industry joke because that is so much harder to close. You have to build a rehash process. You have to build all these new heads inside your call center or contact center. And despite all of the work, your closing rate over here with this hot lead is 60 to 80%. And your closing rate over here is 35 if you're great. So whereas there's no such thing as a hot bathroom model.
That's right.
So all they know how to do is go close cold leads or solar or roofing.
Software. I mean, we go in and people they're like, oh wait, do I really need this product? What do you do? What? And so it's a very much education and why do you have a problem? Did you even know you had the problem? We can help solve that. I was like, oh, I guess I do. I should be doing rehash. I should be doing these things.
So you've got this whole industry sort of drunk on easy money. Okay, I'm going to go hey, they need a hot water tank because their hot water tank literally blew up in their basement this morning. It's not like there's a let's have a 3 to 6 month buying decision and budget for it.
It's an emergency.
Yeah. So it's easy. I'm going to go close that. But then, okay, I got to lead off Angie's List. They're discerning. They're trying to figure it out. Who's the right provider? What's the right price? What are the things I want? And it's not emergent. Or same thing with a home show. Whereas again, bath remodels, big remodels, long sales cycle, you're used to a 20 to 30% closing rate. You're built around that. But plumbing and HVAC just isn't.
I imagine there's some aspect of, let's say, the installation piece where you could do, more of the B2B sales process, right?
Yeah.
Because, I'll maybe use myself as an example. I live in Brooklyn in New York City. So we had an in-window AC unit, which was antiquated, loud, terrible. And we went through an evaluation of putting a mini split in. It's not cheap, by the way, as you well know. And and so it was a considered purchase. And we did our research and we're figured it all out, right? So, but it's a different model than, hey, our existing system broke and it's 100 degrees outside and we need to fix it ASAP. So come in here. It was a longer sales process.
Totally. So the whole industry, a little bit more on the install side, but get comfort advisors in HVAC, they don't even want to run the Angie's List leads. All they want are the tech flips. And it's a really big cultural problem in these companies because they're this is a waste of time. I only close 1 in 3 over here. Whereas for a bath remodel company, that's probably great. But over here, I close 50% or 60%.
And so that's why we see, and I'm sure you're aware and see it too, but we see a lot of teams with a rehash team. They have a specific sales team. It's this is what they do, and they're compensated on this. They're not getting the good. They're not getting the good stuff, the hot leads. They're focused on rehash, and we've seen a ton of companies that work with us build successful businesses doing that. But it's different. It's a different muscle that they're working for sure.
Man, this was awesome. I feel like we covered a lot. We got to touch industry. We got to touch background. We plugged Hatch a couple times, which is great. Hatch really is a great partner, and we are really excited about them. We got to guilt trip you for at least 3 or 4 minutes about how you literally came to Akron and didn't say hi.
I'm coming back. We're hanging. I'm coming back.
Yeah, it's fine. No, it's totally fine. I'm going to remember this. This was awesome. If people want to get a hold of you, How can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. You can search my name, which is obviously, as we discussed at the beginning, a longer last name, Tim Geisenheimer, which will be hopefully in the podcast name. So you just copy paste that over. Or you can shoot me an email. It is Tim Geisenheimer, Tim.Geisenheimer at usehatch.ai.
This was awesome, Tim. Thanks for coming on today. And I look forward to seeing you when you eventually come back to Akron.
Thanks, John. It's now going to be scheduled. Don't you worry.